Did you enjoy that?
Yeah.
That was pretty powerful. And folks, this is the first place that's been premiered in Tennessee. It's right here. So thank you so much for doing this. I think right now it's about 75 or 76 cities that this is premiered in, and their goal is to get to 150. So it's about halfway through. It's been great. I was in D.C., Washington, D.C. prior to coming to here. Monday, the venue was sold out. Tuesday, the venue was sold out. So it's just been amazing, the amount of people that have come out to watch this. So I'm more than willing to field some questions. Some I may not have all your answers, but let's just see where this goes. Anybody have a question for me? Yeah.
If we want to get a showing in our hometowns, who do we talk to set that up?
Do you have some way to write anything down right now? You do. Let's just start with emailing me, and then I will direct you to where you need to go. It's Rick, R-I-C-K, at farmgreen.land. Land, L-A-N-D, that's a good extension. Rick at farmgreen.land.
What's your strategy? I mean, the biggest hurdle I would imagine is overcoming the corporations that are making billions of dollars.
Right.
And that's a very strong, powerful machine.
How do we overcome the power of the big mighty machine, the agribusiness that was discussed in the movie? It's going to be very difficult. There are hopes of change. A lot of these companies are starting to, whether this is right or wrong, they are starting to use the word regenerative. They are starting to change the way they look at things. They're coming out with programs to help farmers that will implement some of these practices. They'll maybe give them $5, $10 an acre types of things. But you are exactly right. This is going to be huge. And the other side that's huge is the pharmaceutical industry. You think they're going to want to give up selling all the drugs? No. So this is going to be very hard. It's going to take all of us. But you know, the one thing we have to remember is, excuse me, the tipping point in life is about 11%. That's it. So if we can get 10 or 11% to tip in this favor, then it just starts building momentum. Malcolm Gladwell he's a wonderful author, but he's got a book called The Tipping Point. He talks all about this, explains it through life, many instances, and that's what this 100 million acre challenge is. There's roughly 900 million acres grown in the United States. About 11% of that is close enough to 100 million. So that's the goal here, is to get to that tipping point. But great question. It's going to be hard. It was one to interview.
Rick, I was just curious, your experience at Washington, the political front, how optimistic did you leave that environment?
Yeah, what was my take on Washington, D.C. when I testified?
Yes, sir.
I was very disappointed. The day before I testified, I was fortunate enough to go around, and I think I visited 10 or 11 Congress people, women or men, office. Now, they weren't there, but I got to visit with their aides. And I quickly found out that the Congress people don't run the country, the aides do, the 25-year-olds. So, out of all those meetings, it was very encouraging. I got to the last meeting, and I'm not going to say who it was. Got to the last meeting, and the aide said, "You are in for a battle tomorrow." And I'm like, "Why would you say that?" Well, this is not about regenerating. This is about feeding the world, and we have to grow. We have to get 300 bushel corn and 100 bushel beans, and we've got to do all these things to feed the world. So we said our piece and quietly left, and I went in to testify, and it was disappointing in the fact that every Republican there tried to say how bad this was. They were not willing to want to work. They kept bringing up Sri Lanka. If you recall, about 3 years ago, the Sri Lankan government passed a law that every farmer is going to go organic and they're not going to use any inputs and they're just going to go from doing everything to doing nothing. That failed miserably. The country just about went bankrupt. So the Republicans constantly went back to that. The Democrats, they were there asking questions, how can we make this work? By the time it was over, everyone settled down and it got to be a little bit more what I thought it was going to be. I mean, here we are, we're talking about the Ag Committee. Of all the parts of the government, you think that would be the one that would have the most bipartisanship. You know, everyone's going to want, they'll take their coat off at the door, leave their politics behind, and sit down and hammer this out. That's what I did not see at the beginning. It did change toward the end, but it was just a little disappointing to me. But I have gotten phone calls from some of the Congress people wanting more information. How can we get things to happen in their home state and things like that. So it's encouraging. At these premieres that we just had, and there's actually another one there tonight, but I came to do this because this is important. There were a lot of aides there, and they would come up after the Q&A, they would visit with me, they'd hand me their business card. Can we call you? You sure can. So it's happening, but it's going to take everyone to do it. And I enjoy the young folks that are here and are encouraged by this and want to have a showing. So where would you want to do it at? Where are you from?
I'm a graduate from Southern Adventist University.
From where?
Southern Adventist University.
Very good. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Any other questions? Yes.
You mentioned feeding the world. Is there an effort that's going on in other countries, or is this right now solely U.S. based?
You mean this regenerative movement?
Well, yes, and your efforts with the movie and your presentation. and so on.
Yeah. The regenerative movement is worldwide, and there are a lot of folks that are doing the right things and teaching. That's to me is the next push here. We need to get teachers out, we need to get mentors out, and the teachers can teach the teachers so that they can then spread out and teach the farmers how to do this properly, because this is a tough thing. I mean, you go into a group of farmers that may or may not even know what regenerative is, never even heard the word because they don't care, and you're asking them to change something that they don't think is broken. They think that the way they're doing it is correct, and it's their heritage. It's their dad taught them, their grandfather taught them. So this becomes a very touchy, ouchy subject if it's not approached in the right way. And that's why these teachers need to be. And you know, I try to do what I can. This is hard stuff. I mean, I've been in 10 countries, 25 or 30 states in the United States to speak. I spend over 200 days of the year doing this type of stuff. I mean, this is hard. But this is what makes it all so satisfying. A group of folks like you that understand and are willing. We have to do this. But yes, this is moving worldwide. There's a lot of great mentors around the world doing this. Now, as far as the movie, I don't think they're going to. This is all United States for right now, and I think maybe January or February they're going to start to go out around the world. I don't know how they're going to do that. I'm not privy to that, but right now the focus is the United States. A couple more. Yes, ma'am.
So what would you say have been the practical challenges of converting your farm or other farms, large-scale farms, from conventional to organic or regenerative? And more like practical, on-the-ground kind of stuff.
What are the challenges?
Yeah.
Yeah, mindset is number one. You have to be willing to understand that change is good, change is necessary, and what are we going to do to make that change? Now, for me, it was what was described in the movie. And let me give a little bit more of the context of that, a little bit of it's so hard to, the movie crew followed me for 3 days and got what you see right there, you know. So, but we were high tillage, and every spring we would come out and be usually a week too early to be in the field. So you go out and work the ground real shallow, let the sunlight and the air dry it out. You come back and you work it again, so you got about 2 inches deep, and you leave her lay, and you're gonna come back tomorrow and you're gonna plant corn. That's the night we got the 1-inch rain event on a 1% slope field. Not even close to anything around here. And that field had moved, actually it was on the road. And that was the moment that woke me up, and that was the Mack truck running me over that said it was time to change. So I then knew we have to do something. So then the further that I'm into the journey, I then realized I have an uncle that died of cancer, sister-in-law died of cancer, a brother, diabetes, a wife, a nephew, cancer. It's like, there's got to be something going on here. It's time to make a change. So those are the events that stacked up for me. Is that going to work for everybody? No. But again, the biggest obstacle is right up here. Right up here. The second obstacle is proper teaching and education and support after the teaching. Because I could come into this room and I could teach you guys what I know. But then I get in my truck and I go home. And there's, who's the support group? So that support group is just as important here as it is as me coming. So then you start to look to within the community. I don't know anybody here. I know just a few people here, but I know this family right here farms regeneratively, and they're not very far away from here. So these are the sort of resources that you would pull on. And is there anybody else in the room? I mean, the farms here is regeneratively farmed, right? Right here, right over here. How many years?
I was organic for 10 years.
10 years organic. Anybody in the room how many years anybody been doing no-till farming? Has anybody been doing it for 30 years? See, it doesn't matter where I go. Right there he is, right back there. It doesn't matter where I go. I ask that question everywhere I go, and there's one person in the room. Are you from around here? I can't hear. Alabama, that's pretty far away. So, well, no, that's really not, is it? Yeah. Well, thank you for coming. Thank you for all your efforts. How many years have you been no-tilling? 93. It's awesome. 30 years. So those are the folks that you seek out, and obviously no-till doesn't work, or he wouldn't be still doing it, right? So there's a reason why he's doing that. There's a reason why he's organic. They're regenerative. So seek those people out. I think there was another question. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yes, I would just like to say thank you, honestly, and commend you for your efforts and those been involved. The voices speak out, and people hear, and it's a reflection because, with that being said, Congress has passed the IRA, which is the Inflation Reduction Act, which is going to appropriate $19.5 billion over the next 5 years for climate smart mitigation practices for agriculture and for forestry. So, like he was saying, reach out to your local support. Even when this comes to the USDA or the Natural Resource Conservation Service, NRCS, that's where a lot of that money is going to trickle down from for those mitigation climate smart practices for agriculture.
Thank you. You're exactly right. And I was a little hard on my testimony. I was absolutely honored to be there. Absolutely honored. Chairman Scott reached out to me and asked me to come, and I thought that was a huge endeavor because he was at the time the ranking member, which was Democrat. I'm a Republican, so he understands that the parties get left at the door. He understood that, but I will also say that the next day after that testimony was when the $20 billion was announced. So it was more powerful than I thought it was. Not just because of me. There were other people there testifying, but that was the very first regenerative economic testimony in the history of the U.S. Congress. And I was there, and I was absolutely honored. And $20 billion got appropriated the next day. Yes, sir.
You had mentioned Lanka and their disaster results.
Yeah.
And kind of left that into space that was a big argument.
Yeah.
Against what you're doing. So, is there any validity to that statement?
There is some, because that truly did happen. I don't know what happened there, but the government in Sri Lanka decided to say, you're all going to farm without any inputs now. And I mean, they had great intentions, but they didn't have proper teaching. So that did turn into a disaster. They turned it around, and they've got it straightened out now. But that is just the mechanism that the Republicans wanted to use to shoot this down. And they kept saying that regenerative and organic are tied together. That's not true. You do not have to be organic to be regenerative, and you don't have to be regenerative to be organic. It can go many different directions. So, but like I said, I think a lot of those folks that were on that committee when I testified are now gone and are either out or off there because there's a lot of new faces on that committee, and they've got a whole different outlook. And the powers have flipped now. The Republicans, for the moment, have the control of the House. So, and honestly, the number one congressperson that was against it has actually toned himself down and is leaning more toward our side. So it's gaining. It truly is gaining.
How far away are we from actually having that app where you can scan your food?
Probably 2 years. And that's going to tell it all. That's going to tell just exactly what Gabe said. I really like what you folks are doing here. I have one of your products at home. I have the biological extractor is at home on the farm, and it's a tremendous product, high quality. You have a great group of people here. I'm building a very good relationship with Simeon. Simeon is very smart in the biological arena, and the biological arena is going to be the next future. That's the next thing that's going to push this to the next level, is how do we get biology properly incorporated into the systematic approach that we're all trying to do with regenerative farming. And you guys are way out ahead of the curve on that, so I applaud you for that. I didn't mean to say last question. I'll stay here and answer questions. I got to get on a plane tomorrow at like 11 o'clock, so I do have to make that. But if there's any other questions, just keep coming. Yes, ma'am.
I did ranch hand work for about 10 years out in Missouri, but we were never successful when it came to the farming aspect.
The row crops.
Right. So we dealt with cattle, we saw the land heal, it grew tremendously, it was better than most people in the area, we worked around 300 acres. Great work. But anytime we tried to get to the farming aspect, it was like we could never get our soil good enough. So are there resources that you can recommend, a young person like myself that's affordable because I'm already in college, I'm already spending a lot of money, but where I can start educating myself so that when I do have a place of my own again, I can start repairing the ground.
That's a great question, thank you. There are a few universities that are actually starting to teach regenerative practices. Would you like to speak to that, please? He will give a way better answer than I will.
My name is Chris Millman. I'm in charge of agricultural sciences at Pellissippi State. Pellissippi State Community College is the largest community college in the state of Tennessee. We are part of a huge, about a $30 million grant. Pellissippi will be the regenerative ag wing of that. It's a National Science Foundation grant. But Tennessee is starting to develop regen ag programs. University of Tennessee is doing a little bit more on the sustainable side. We took the perspective of you have to regenerate before you sustain. If you sustain what we have now, we're screwed. So you really need to do the regen first. But if you get online, look, I'd be more than happy to give you my contact information, see how we can help you. But it is spreading. What Rick said is true. And I've met with Gabe, we're working with Understanding Ag and Soil Health Academy as well.
It is coming. There's some universities in California that are actually have a regenerative agricultural degree. So it is happening. You know, I know the film was hard on land grant. I mean, it was hard on a lot of people, but they don't all fit into that category. So just do your research, like you know how to research. You're the right age, you can do anything. And you can find those answers and they're out there. But you know, I'm gonna stay right here for just a moment. This is impossible for these folks to farm. I mean, how are you gonna buy $1 million combine? How are you gonna pay $400 cash rent? How are you gonna pay for $400 bag seed corn? It's not gonna happen. I'm sorry, but it's not. This is a problem. We have to figure out how to bring the young folks back to the farm and get them involved in the farm and then be able to hand acreage off to them to then grow their future. This is serious because right now I think the average age farmer in the United States is 60 years old maybe? 59 or 60? That's old. Now it's not super duper old. I mean, that's how old I am. So I'm not giving it up tomorrow, but the point is, that's a long ways from a 25-year-old.
So, we're living in New York right now in a residential property, typical, very small land. And we think about move to northeast Kentucky or northeast Tennessee, kind of that area. And we search for land, and the prices are impossible if you want to buy like farmland. What is your suggestion or idea for a couple like us to even get involved in something like that?
You know, my first suggestion would be like the lady in San Diego who's turning the front yards into a garden. That's exactly where I would start because then I've never done this and I should. I've always wanted to go to the, do you guys have extension agents here? I assume you do. Yeah, and then do you have like master gardener classes? I need to take one of those. And that's what I would recommend is a master gardener class and then learn how to get your own little plot and get started that way. But as far as going to buy farm, just tomorrow to go buy a piece of farm ground, I don't know how you do that. I mean, at home, it's $14,000, $15,000, $16,000 an acre. And you can't, that acre, I mean, my grandparents, or my great-great-grandparents, when they homesteaded, they could make that work. They could take a quarter section and raise a family and pay for the farm. Today, that acre does not pay for itself. It takes the rest of the farm to make that payment. So it's almost impossible unless you've got legacy, and that's hard.
We see so many industrial farms and stuff like that, but we almost never see something like 10, 20, 30 acres that could be geared towards like homesteading and raising a family and being more close to the ground. And this is basically what we're aiming for. And I'm really kind of hoping to get some answer. How can you reach something like that?
That's just, I don't know. Is there anyone in the room that would like to answer that question?
I don't have, direct experience with it, but I did lobby with the Young Farmers Coalition, the Tennessee chapter. So if anyone is interested in getting connected to how the transfer of land from the aging farmers to the younger farmers needs to happen, then you need to get connected to that group, because they have policies, solutions that are built into the Farm Bill. They're really amazing policies that's difficult for, each state and county can make their own legislations and stuff. So you have to get involved and talk about it, and you have to talk to county commissioners and so forth. But in Tennessee, there's something called the Farm Link that can help. And I know there's Young Farmers Coalition wants to invest more in that, but you can help you get connected to the farmers who want to sell their land. So.
Great, thank you. And that's a national organization, right? Yeah, I don't have all the answers, so thank you for jumping in. Appreciate that. Is it time to go eat?
I was also going to suggest
Oh, yeah.
one other thing. These surrounding counties, they're in really high demand. I know we've had our farm for 25 years. I had another farm in one county before that. Where you might look is some of the northeastern counties that are more subsistence farming. They're not in as high a demand, I don't think, simply because they're really hilly and in some cases even mountainous. But the land, I'm pretty sure in Hawkins County, for example, what am I leaving out? Washington, Scott, Campbell, that whole band that's just south of eastern Kentucky. You might have better luck up that way than you would down this direction. If you've got Knoxville on one hand, which is a good-sized city, you've got Chattanooga on another. You've got two of the main interstates in the country, crossroad. It's really a prime place to be for farm and any kind of land right now. So head a little bit farther northeast, and I think you might have better success.
About 2016, our son, who has an anthropology history degree, decided he wanted to farm. And we said, well, my husband was research for Colorado State Universities. He knew a little bit. We said, what are you doing? What are you thinking? So he lives with friends on their property. He has built everything himself. He has a raw dairy. He's single. He has zero money, but he's happier than heck. And he does it all himself. But you have to be willing to work your butt off.
Right.
Because everything he does is through farmers markets and word of mouth.
But you see.
And he's Western Tennessee. Western Tennessee has farmland and they have property, and it's a heck of a lot cheaper than here.
Yeah. And you said something there very important in my opinion. He's happy.
He's very happy.
That's all that matters. Yeah. Thank you.
He's also profitable.
Yeah.
Barely, but yeah. And you have to be able to give up. He doesn't go to he milks twice a day. So you know what his social life's like.
Yeah. We don't play the yield game on our farm. This system is not about yield. This is about building soil health, human health, having fun, enjoying life. Life's too short. I mean, yesterday my daughters were here, and today my grandchildren are right here. I mean, it goes that fast. So there's way more to life than chasing the almighty dollar. So, enjoy and take it all in. I think I'll end her right there.